Hello guys, welcome back to another video on the BMW N52 engine, and we still have the infamous rough idle issue. It's a very common problem on these engines, and there is a number of reasons why you may have a rough idle, but I'm pretty sure I've managed to get to the bottom of it, so stay tuned. Okay then, so we first noticed our rough idle issue when we swapped out the valve cover gasket. Now initially I thought that we maybe left something unplugged, maybe the ignition coils were not seated correctly, maybe we left a sensor disconnected, but then after checking everything, you know, a good few times, I realized that, you know, everything appeared to be as it should be. And then I kind of thought, well, because there is a good chance when you have to disconnect the crankcase breather hose at the back of the intake, the one that goes from the intake manifold to the rocker cover itself, there's a good chance that that may snap when you are removing it. Now, in hindsight, I don't think it did snap when I did remove it, but I just wanted to make sure, so I did go ahead and replace the entire crankcase breather along with the 3 main hoses as well. And I kind of expected after I, you know, replaced all those that the rough idle issue was going to go away, but that was not the case. So after replacing the entire crankcase breather system, I thought, you know, there's got to be something else that I'm missing. So I thought, you know, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rule out a vacuum leak. I am just going to buy a smoke tester and just do a smoke test just to see if we have any kind of vacuum leaks at all. And then if that reveals nothing, I'm then going to go ahead and do a fuel pressure test, because one of the causes of a rough idle could be if you have a leaking injector, or in fact a blocked injector. So if you're not having proper fuel pressure, that can cause one or more of the cylinders to misfire, and it would in turn give you a rough idle. So I thought if I do a smoke test, that's going to eliminate any kind of vacuum leaks, and if I do a fuel pressure test, that's going to kind of give me a better idea as to what is going on. Now then, I just want to point out, when I first noticed the rough idle, pretty soon after doing the valve cover gasket, I done a diagnostic scan with ISTA, as you do, you know, just to see if we have any fault codes, and I was having 0 fault codes at all. So, you know, I was kind of just a little bit lost as to where to turn to next. But then after driving it for a couple of weeks, I did actually notice that we had developed some fault codes. I believe there was mixture, I believe it was control mixture 1 and control mixture 2, which indicate lean running conditions, essentially too much air and not enough fuel. Now this again could be from too much air entering the cylinders, so from a vacuum leak, or it could be from too much fuel entering the cylinders, say from a leaking injector or whatever. But then after that, I also developed more fault codes, and I believe it was misfire from cylinder 1, 2 and 4. And then I decided to just go ahead and check the ignition coils again as well. So I'm going to kind of get to the position that I was in where I was going to inspect the ignition coil. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the cabin air filter box and the engine cover, and then we'll take a look at what I found. So we can see we have the cabin air filter box and the engine cover removed. I've also went ahead and removed 2 of the ignition coils as well, cylinder 3 and cylinder 4, because this is the first thing that I noticed when I removed the engine cover. So it's going to be pretty hard to see for yourself, but if we take a look down the sides of the spark plug tubes, we can see we have some oil. Let me see if I can we see down there? Maybe? So not down the spark plug tubes themselves. We are all good down there. That means the valve cover is doing its job. But actually to the sides of it, so on top of the valve cover itself, we can see we have some oil. And you know, when I removed the valve cover, I thoroughly cleaned this thing. You know, I got it looking pretty spotless, especially on the outside. So I was like, that's new. I mean, when I'd done the oil change, I didn't spill any oil. So where has that came from? And then I thought, well, there's realistically only one place it can come from, and that is from the Valvetronic motor seal here. And then I thought, but that's a new seal, how can that leak? And you know, maybe there was a chance that it got damaged during installation, maybe it was faulty when I bought it, I don't know. But if you take a look at the top, right up there at the top of the gasket, you can see there is actually a slight tear in it. So I think that this gasket is leaking, and I think this has actually caused our rough idle. Now obviously we don't know for sure, we won't know until we get this thing swapped out, but I am pretty confident now, because like I said, I've gone over this engine numerous times and I haven't noticed anything untoward apart from this. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that, you know, you can see where it's been leaking on top of the Valvetronic motor itself, and I'm guessing it's been leaking right the way around the perimeter of the gasket and then leaking down there. So next job we need to do then is get the Valvetronic motor removed. Now as you guys know, there is 3 bolts that hold this thing in place. So there is the 2 torque bolts, one on either side where it goes into the valve cover, and then there's one on the bottom as well. Now to remove the Valvetronic motor, you do not just want to remove those bolts. There is actually a Allen bolt in the end. Essentially you need to put an Allen key in the end and then rotate that clockwise, because there is kind of like a worm drive in the inside of it, which makes contact with a gear, which in turn operates the Valvetronic system. So yes, you need to put this thing into service mode. So yeah, get a 4mm Allen bit or an Allen key, put that in the end and then rotate it clockwise. So essentially you're just going to keep rotating it until you feel some resistance. Now when it starts to get tight, that's when you are fully done. Don't try and force it, because you will break this thing. There we go, that's in service mode now. So we can go ahead and remove all 3 of the bolts, then start reversing this thing back out. And that's all 3 bolts removed. Let's get this thing removed now. So what you want to do to safely back this thing out then is insert the 4mm Allen bit or Allen key again, but then turn it anti-clockwise, and that will essentially just push it out. Just take your time though, and we don't want to break this thing. You should start to see it pushing away from the valve cover itself. There we go. There we are. Easy enough. There we go, that's the Valvetronic motor removed. I see a lot of other people remove the Valvetronic motor the incorrect way. What they'll do is they'll just go ahead, remove all 3 bolts, and then the Valvetronic motor will literally just spring out, and that's how you can end up damaging it. But now all we need to do is retrieve the original gasket. So managed to get the gasket removed then, and you can see we have these two tabs. So we have one at the bottom here and then one at the top, but the one at the top has literally broken. Like I said, I don't know if this is from incorrect installation, which I don't think it is, because I'm sure there's just I don't think it matters which way up it goes. But yeah, either way, this thing has got torn in the process, so I'm guessing that's been letting oil out, because yeah, has gone slightly past the middle of the gasket. So yeah, this has been letting oil out and I guess air in. So even if this does not fix our issue, this definitely needed replacing again anyway, because like I said, it's obviously been leaking oil. So yeah, we'll give the area a good clean up and we'll go ahead and install a new one of these. So we can see we have our replacement here, and this one is in fact a genuine BMW. Should say BMW on it somewhere. Yeah, there we are. But yeah, it's time to get this thing installed. I'm just double checking that there isn't a top and a bottom to this thing. I don't think there is. It looks pretty symmetrical to me. So there we are then. That's our new gasket in place. I am just going to go ahead and clean all that oil up that is down there. You can probably see it a little bit better now. See all that oil on top of the rocker cover? Like I said, not down the spark plug tubes, just kind of around it and near that bolt there, down there. So I'm going to try my best to clean all that up, and then we will go ahead and reinstall the Valvetronic motor. I managed to find the part of the gasket that was torn off, you know, the original gasket, so that didn't fall in the engine, which is good. I've gave this area a good clean up now, so I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the Valvetronic motor. Obviously only one way that this thing can go in. Connectors at the top, this bracket here is at the bottom. Okay then, so the Valvetronic motor is now reinstalled. I've torqued down all three of the bolts just to 10 Newton meters. That should be plenty enough. And now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the ignition coils. Now you will notice they are different colours. I believe only one of the 6 has ever been replaced. I think the rest are original. I will be swapping all 6 of the ignition coils out when I do the spark plugs, which should be pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and drop these back in place. Make sure they are properly seated, and we can go ahead and plug everything back up. Make sure we have our ground cable connected, and yeah, then I think we'll fire this engine up just to see if we do notice any difference, and to see if it has, you know, cured our rough idle before we go ahead and you know, put everything else back. So then we have the Valvetronic motor reinstalled. That is now plugged back in. The ignition coils are back in. That is all plugged back in, and we have our ground cable reconnected as well. I believe that's everything. Obviously, like I said, I'm not going to put the engine cover on yet. I'm not going to put the cabin air filter box and the scuttle panel back yet. Let's fire this thing up and let's see if this has cured our rough idle problem. Guys, would you believe it? We no longer have the rough idle. That thing sounds sweet now. How can such a small leak in such a small gasket cause that big of an issue? That is crazy. This thing is honestly running perfect now. I'm over the moon with that. Just goes to show then, if you do have a rough idle on the N52 engine, definitely check the Valvetronic motor gasket. If it looks anything like mine does, there's a good chance that could be your issue. Alright, let's get all this reinstalled and let's wrap this job up. And there we are then. That is the engine cover back on, that is the scuttle panel and cabin air filter box back on, and that is pretty much job done. Okay then guys, so I hope you all have enjoyed this video. I hope it has been somewhat helpful. Please remember to give this video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you have not already done so, and I will see you all in that next video. Peace!